Ha! Getting out of debt. I feel like I should not make this video smiling because it's such a serious subject matter. However, I'm a smile, bro. So yes, how to get out of debt. Now, if perhaps when you were doing your debt in December, or perhaps due to an unfortunate incident, you got into debt, this video is for you. Or you know somebody that regularly owes you, you could share this video with them. Here's how things can change for the better for you as a person if you've been into debt previously. Number one, and I'm going to be getting my tips from two sources. One, of course, is from the scriptures because, yeah, you do need to have a scriptural reference for this. The scripture is right in front of you, and the story, of course, is a very popular one about the widow whose husband had owed a sum of money and they had gone to the prophet for help. First things first that you should do if you have been into debt before is that you should talk to somebody. I know there is the tendency to want to maybe escape, lock up in your shell. You might be depressed because how did I get into this kind of situation? However, this is not the time to isolate yourself. It's actually best to talk to someone. Scripture says that the widow cried to Elisha for help. She cried out for help. So you need to speak to somebody who is wise. Of course, you don't want to talk to somebody that doesn't have the wisdom enough to, first of all, keep the information to themselves, is to not spread it around as a form of gist, and somebody that would not like outrightly judge you when you speak to them, right? So of course, you might need to pray for this, to be very honest, because I think that you can't really judge people by how they look. Not everybody, people look wise but aren't like really wise. So yeah, you shouldn't be going around telling everybody that this is the situation that you are in, but you can pray to God. Of course, God is even the first person you should talk to. He already knows that you're in that situation, but he wants to, help you as much as possible. And so you can just pray to him to direct you to the right person to speak with. But make sure this person is somebody that is wise, and make sure, don't isolate basically. It's also important to mention that if you're in this kind of situation, it's not the right time to want to harm yourself, right? It's not the right time to want to harm yourself. Understandably, this is a very terrible situation. However, in the next few months, perhaps years, you are going to be able to gift somebody this money that you are owing. Like, it will become chicken change for you. So why harm yourself? Like, you are bigger than this. It's just this particular phase of your life or this particular period. All right, so please don't harm yourself. Talk to somebody about it. Second thing is that you should find the source. Reevaluate. How did I get here? What did I use the money to do? How did I even borrow this money in the first place? What did I need this money for? Did I really need this money? Habits of highly successful people that I've been reading says that until you acknowledge that you caused something, you will not have the power to be able to say, I'm going to change it. I have the ability to change it. So if you blame somebody for it, you might also not be able to have the power to say, I'm going to change it because I'm responsible for this. I'm responsible for my life. This cannot continue for me. So until you acknowledge that, it's possible to relapse after you've come out of the debt, right? So you need to make a mental note to remember, how did I get here in the first place? Scripture says that the widow knew that her husband had gotten loans. So you need to know the source of your debt, how this debt came to be in the first. Number 3, what's your plan to pay the money back? Now, this is a very important discussion. It's something you need to sit with yourself and strategize about. Scripture says that the prophet asked the widow, what do you have in your house that is of value? So the question is, do you have a job? What's your repayment plan? If you do not have a job, you have skills. Everybody has skills because God has put gifts in men, right? You do have skills, and so the question is, how do I bring out the skills? How do I, start making money from this? And then after you have strategized what your plan is, you also want to communicate with your creditors, that is with the people that you are owing. There is nothing worse than not communicating, right? And I mean, I've had situations where, you know, because somebody is owing a particular company money, maybe the person borrowed money from a particular company, their details are being sent, you know, round to their friends. Hey, this person is owing money, this person is owing money. Like, I've had a lot of people, you know, that this has happened to, and it's such a terrible thing. But I feel like if you communicate with the company that, oh, you know what, this is the situation, I'm not trying to hide from you guys, not trying to run away, this is my payment structure, this is my payment plan, I'm going to pay this in so and so period of time, please give me time, and please stop adding interest to my money. You know, having that particular discussion would be rather helpful. One of the things that the prophet asked her to do is that she should go to meet her neighbors, and she should ask her neighbors for jars, right? And now this is also important because I think that when we have the skill, when we have the idea, we now have the issue of, oh, but people don't know that I do this. How do I get to tell people that this is what I now do? But it doesn't really. I was going to start a particular business and I need to like let other people know that I was going to be starting the business. Guess what? I entered people's DM and I said, hi guys, please can you borrow me 5k? And you know, people were like, oh, what's up? Like, why do you need 5k? You know, what's the matter? What's going on? Like, people responded basically, and once they responded, I was like, I beg you, I'm not asking for money. Please just help me to post the flyer of my business. You can try that, like, especially if you're a shy person like I am, and then, you know, tell people, please help me to post this, help me to share it. I don't want to be borrowing money from you people again. Please help me to publicize my business, and then I'm sure that they will help you to do it, because yeah, people did help me to do that. In the end, the widow could not only pay her bills, that is pay off her debt, she could also fend for her family, which is very important. So if you are in debt for one reason or the other, please take a look at all of these things that I have mentioned and try as much as possible to, like, yeah, repay the debts. Now, of course, you see, you need God in all of these things, because there is the part of divine intervention. For instance, when she was pouring the jar of oil and then, you know, it's multiplied, right? So there is the part where God multiplies what you're currently doing with your hands, right? There is the part where people suddenly forgive your debt and they say, oh, you've paid 50%, leave the remaining 50%, right? But the point is that you need to do something, you need to take action, and of course you need to speak to God and make up your mind and be committed that you don't want this to happen again, in terms of you don't want to get into debt again, you don't want to borrow, and you might have borrowed for a just cause, like maybe school fees, anything, very important stuff, you know, you didn't have money at the time, and yeah, make a commitment that, Lord, I don't want to borrow, I want to get into this stream of income, please bless my hustle. And yeah, I'm sure it will work out for you. All right, I'm rooting for you, and I hope you get out of debt pretty soon. Like this video, share with your friends, and subscribe if you have not. Turn on notification button for the next video, which is the tools on how to, yeah, do all of these things that we have mentioned: savings, investments, getting out of debt. Right? So, but that's going to be a very long video. Anyways, I'm glad that you stayed with me for this one.